What is up, guys? Welcome back. I'm Kevin Crates. This is a channel where we go over a bit of crypto news followed by 5 charts every day. Today we're looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, AAVE, KSM, and AXS. And as always, if you're just here for a specific chart, timestamps are down in the description below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn that bell on so you catch all daily uploads. The market is rough today, guys. Bitcoin hanging around 30,000, Ethereum down to around 1,800, and everything is just in the red. There's not much to shout out in today's overview. Most of these prices are insanely low. Besides Dash having a bit of a pump, up around 15% today. I'm not sure what's driving that pump, but I'm not expecting it to last. The market seems to be stuck in a heavy downtrend and most likely will go lower in the coming days. Jumping over some headlines, we have Binance making news. Binance burns $390 million in BNB. Binance burned around 1.2 million BNB tokens with an estimated dollar value of around $390 million. What's even more interesting is the amount burned implies Binance made close to $2 billion in profit since April. This was the second largest BNB token burning in history, besides the previous quarterly burn, which burned around $600 million worth. And obviously this had little to no effect on the price of the token itself, with the market being in such a downtrend. But it is worth noting with the extreme growth of Binance in such a short period of time, in spite of all the regulatory pressure that they've been under recently. And this just goes to back up what I always say here, that Binance will always be number one. They are such a dominant force compared to every other cryptocurrency exchange out there. We had Grayscale in the headlines. Grayscale is launching an institutional grade DeFi fund and index. The article stated the fund will give investors the ability to invest in DeFi protocols through a singular investment vehicle. It will give them broad-based exposure to DeFi assets, including Uniswap and AAVE. And this isn't just a big deal for Uniswap and AAVE, this is a big deal for crypto in general, because we see more and more institutions getting interested in DeFi. And yes, AAVE and Uniswap are currently leaders in that space on Ethereum, but once more and more blockchains release their own DeFi platforms, those will probably grow at a very exponential rate. We had this interesting article out of Kenya. A candidate for Kenyan elections body says adopting blockchain will reduce ballot costs by 300%. The article quotes the candidate saying the cost of a ballot in Kenya ranges between $7 to $25 US. If we use blockchain technology, this cost will go down to 50 cents US. This is an area I would explore as a commissioner. The article also quotes greater security and transparency as another benefit of using blockchain technology. And there isn't too much to say about this other than the fact that it is inevitable for more countries to adopt blockchain technology for things like voting. Because I really don't see too much debate about its security or cost effectiveness. It just seems to be a question of who will be the first to implement it. So it's going to be interesting seeing how this plays out and if they end up switching over to a blockchain-based voting system and if other countries will follow. We had some interesting news about the Paraguay Bitcoin bill. Paraguayan lawmakers present a very different Bitcoin bill than expected. A group of Paraguayan lawmakers presented a Bitcoin bill in the National Congress last week, but it turned out to be a very different proposal than what crypto followers expected. The bill seeks to control and regulate cryptocurrency transactions and establish taxes. There is no mention of declaring Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrencies as legal tender anywhere in the proposal. The early draft states things such as digital assets are not legal tender currencies under Paraguayan state, and for this reason they are not backed by the Central Bank of Paraguay. It also stated this is not a legal tender, this is a commodity and the purpose of the law is to regulate and control this industry. That is the base project that we really have today. And as far as mining and trading goes, it stated any person whose main activity is that of a trader must have an authorization issued by a competent authority which enables them to carry out consultancies or transactions through a mandate or administration contract. And if you're not new here, you know we've talked about this before where I say don't get too bullish about these headlines where you see a country making Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies legal tender, because that is a long road with many obstacles, and we're just seeing that here with this article today. We had Matic making huge news. Polygon launches NFT gaming studio. Polygon has announced the launch of a gaming and NFT studio called Polygon Studios. The initiative is aiming to strengthen the network's fast-growing ecosystem. Polygon has already attracted many blockchain game developers. In January, the NFT trading game AAVE announced the project would no longer launch on Ethereum mainnet due to the high gas fees. Instead, the game chose to launch on Polygon, showcasing the network's potential to attract high-profile projects. Since then, other prominent blockchain games such as Zedrun and Skyweaver have also moved onto the network. And this is due to the fact that the high Ethereum gas fees have been a massive obstacle for all gaming projects on Ethereum. And you guys know how bullish I am on the entire NFT gaming space, and to see Polygon Matic with its insanely low transaction fees attempt to take charge and take the lead in the space is great to see. And to add to that, we have this last article here. Crypto game Axie Infinity has generated $84.9 million in 1 month. And I know I say it every day, but I'm going to say it again. NFT gaming is going to be the front door for cryptocurrency mass adoption into the mainstream. And I know if you're not a gamer, it might be confusing how a game like Axie Infinity or a game in general can not only generate so much revenue, but continue to pay players a salary to play the game. It's just a matter of the fact that there's so much money in the gaming industry. Not to mention the fact that blockchain games seem to recognize the fact that a game is nothing without its player base, and to financially incentivize your players to make the game as successful as it can become is such a revolution in the gaming industry. I keep saying it, Axie Infinity won't be the last one. Axie Infinity is the first one of the start of an entire gaming revolution. And I know I've mentioned it before, but I do have an NFT focus series coming out on this channel. It just takes a lot more work than these basic videos I do every day. So make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and turn that bell on so you don't miss those videos when they drop. Looking at Bitcoin's daily chart, let's turn our notes on from the other day, and it is actually crashing while I am filming this. Let's jump over to the 1 minute chart so we can see exactly what is happening. You can see here that Bitcoin is just kind of in this low 30,500 range. It is so close to dropping, but in my opinion, it's got a bit of a ways to go. Stochastic RSI on the 1 minute is pretty high, so it's probably going to push down a bit. But if we look at these other time frames, 15 minutes pretty low, 45 minutes is low and attempting to push up, 1 hour low, it's got room to drop, but even the 4 hour a little bit lower to go. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it kind of hit this 30K mark that we've been talking about for weeks now. Overall, I'd say that my price target now that 30K has finally pretty much been hit, 28,000 is next, and it's only a matter of time. However, as far as price goes, we did talk yesterday about this potential punch up in price, and although that didn't quite happen, there is still the possibility that we get a bit of a dip here and then a bit of a punch up, which would make sense considering how sharp of a move down this is. I wouldn't be too surprised to see prices trend back up tomorrow, maybe the next day. That doesn't mean that prices can't just drop. Bitcoin is in a very tense place right now, and the whole market is pretty much right there with it. It doesn't mean that it can't drop at any time, just because there might be a bit of a correction upwards, which is normal in terms of sharp movements down, these impulse waves down. But in terms of a price action, I wouldn't be too surprised to see prices kind of shoot up for a little bit before dropping down. But keep in mind, they can shoot down just as fast, so that's not a guarantee. But overall, our price target of 30K has pretty much been hit now. We've been talking about that for weeks, so we can just leave this out of the discussion. 30K will most likely be hit today, maybe midday, but overall prices still are trending down. I start looking at this 28K mark in the coming days. Let's jump over to the Ichimoku chart. Looking at the Bitcoin daily Ichimoku chart, let's turn our notes on from before and just jump to the 4 hours. And you can see here it's pretty much moving outside of, sorry about the mess. I'll just move all this out of the way so you can see better. But it's pretty much moving exactly how we've been talking about for most of the last few weeks. In terms of price action, I would not be surprised to finally see 30K. It was around 37, so I guess it pretty much did hit our price target. So as far as price targets now, I'm still watching 28,000, and I'll show you why in a moment. As far as what's going to happen over the next day or so, if we go to the 1 hour chart, you can see this is a very sharp impulse move down. I wouldn't be surprised to kind of see it start to trend in this direction. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but this move was very sharp. It seems to have caught itself with a good bounce, some long wicks on the hourly. So it may start to kind of trend sideways in a bit of a correction, but prices look like they're still headed down. I'm going to show you why on the weekly. Let's turn all these notes off. And we've talked about this before, so here you go. If you go back to my old videos from a couple weeks ago, we've been talking about this, that as we approach the Kumo cloud on the weekly, this is looking bearish, guys. And it's going to approach, and the bottom area of support of this would be around 27. Let me just put a price target, just 1 sec here, guys, around 28. Yeah, so as far as price targets, we're still looking at 28 to be a bouncing point. That support should hold. If 28,000 goes, things could get pretty crazy, because down here would be around 22,000. So as far as the Kumo cloud goes, if we lose the 28,000 support on Bitcoin in the weekly, this could drop to around 22,000. I don't think that's going to happen right away. I think what would happen is we're going to hit around 28,000, maybe spike up in price back to around 35,000 even is possible, but we're going to be pressed right up against the Kumo cloud and maybe slowly work our way down in price action towards the low 20Ks. But again, this bearish setup, we've been watching it for weeks and it seems to be playing out. The Bitcoin is headed towards the low 20,000s potentially if it enters the Kumo cloud. But as far as this current dip goes, I would watch for around 28,000 to be a bouncing point. So my price targets for Bitcoin for the time being, 30,000 is pretty much hit. I think it should get hit in the next day or so, but 28,000 is where we will be watching going forward. Looking at Ethereum's daily chart, let's turn our notes on from the other days, and you can see here that it's pretty much, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Ethereum as usual because it's moving exactly how we talked about. 1900, that got hit pretty quick. It's already trended down towards 1700, pretty much hanging around 1800. And I did say before, if it reaches around 1750 before Bitcoin goes below 30K, which it pretty much is, we should start looking at this lower price target of around 1500. So if I turn all this off, you can kind of see it's trended down towards this price target of around 1700. And it's really only a matter of time now, depending on if it's going to hit 1700 around the time that Bitcoin lands on 30K. So that means that if Bitcoin goes below 30K, we got to start looking out for this price target. So for the time being, 1700 is pretty much hit since Ethereum's hanging around 1810. So my price target for Ethereum has moved down for now up until around 1500. Let's take a quick look at the Ichimoku chart. Looking at Ethereum's daily Ichimoku chart, let's turn our notes on from before. And again, you can see moving pretty much exactly how we talked about, headed toward this price target of around 1700. Let me just move all that out of the way. So as far as price targets go for Ethereum now, I'm going to be watching this area here that we just talked about, around 1560, 1550 is where I would look for a bounce. Kind of in this range here is where I would look for that drop. But let's take a quick look at the weekly chart and turn all our notes off so I can show you guys that this still looks so much more bullish than Bitcoin. And with the London hard fork coming up, anything could happen. You never know. Ethereum could just bounce up, pull the entire market up with it. So we have to keep an eye out for that because the London hard fork is soon. But as far as price targets go, Ethereum's low. It's hanging around that 1700. So we will be watching this 1500 range for Ethereum for the time being. But remember, the London hard fork is about 2 weeks away. So we may see this turnaround. We may see the whole market turn around. But lowest I could see Ethereum dropping is around 1550. Current price target of 1750 should be hit soon. So price targets for Ethereum around 1750 to 1550. Looking at AAVE's daily chart, we're going to take a look at these lower price ranges since the market is in a bit of a crash. As far as price targets for AAVE, 194, 195 would be a pretty clear one. But if it reaches there before Bitcoin kind of dips below 30K, I start watching out for these lower price targets. On extreme crashes, it did wick down to 170. On the lowest end, around 150. So AAVE could drop to about 195, would not shock me. 170 to 150 is possible. But let's take a quick look at the Ichimoku chart. Looking at AAVE's Ichimoku chart, let's turn our notes on here. We can see here, if we jump to the 4 hour, we can actually get a better, clear picture of what's going on. Stochastic RSI is extremely low, and this was a pretty sharp move down here. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it kind of trend back up this way. But as far as the market goes, things are trending down. So I'd imagine this price target of just around 229 should be hit again. And if it goes lower than that, I start to watch for around 195 to 200 because we saw 195 on the other chart. Around 200, it can go a little lower than that too. But on the extreme end, I'd start looking at 170 to 150. So it all depends where it lands when Bitcoin and if Bitcoin reaches around 30K. Where AAVE is will kind of indicate how much lower it can go. Stochastic RSI is pretty low on the 4 hour, and if we look at the 1 day, it's also low. So I'd imagine prices are going to kind of push back up, but even on the daily, you can see here it got rejected by the Kumo cloud. So it's only a matter of time before prices kind of go back down to this range around 170. Anything lower than that, I'd start to watch for this 150 range. I don't think it's going to get there, but it always is possible depending on how low Bitcoin drops. So as far as price targets, I kind of be watching around 170 to maybe just around 195 for now. But on the lower end, I would kind of watch out for this price range of around 150 on the extreme end. But price ranges for AAVE, I kind of watch between 170 to about 200. Looking at Kusama, KSM's daily chart, let's turn our notes on from last time. You can see here it's pretty much already reached our price targets from last time, around 150. I would not be surprised to see Kusama go a little lower. I don't think it's going to drop below 100. I think that'd be pretty extreme if it reaches this other price target of around 98. But this price target of around, let's zoom in a little bit here, around 124, 125, somewhere between 120 to 130 is a possibility. Let me just move that up a little bit, try and get this more accurate. Somewhere around 125 to 130 I would watch for in terms of a Kusama drop. Stochastic RSI on the daily is pretty low, and if we jump to the 4 hour, also pretty low. But I imagine Kusama at the very least does hit this original price target that we have out here around 152 possibly pretty soon, depending on how low Bitcoin goes. But if Bitcoin goes lower, I'd start watching for these lower price targets, and 100 is possible. I feel that'd be very extreme, but somewhere between 125 to 130 I think could be hit for Kusama. Let's take a quick look at the Ichimoku chart. Looking at Kusama's daily Ichimoku chart, let's turn our notes on from before. You can see here that price target, it looks like it's trended down. It's going to trend down there pretty soon around 151. It's already bounced here, kind of came back up as a correction, but it looks like prices are going to head down to about 151. So I would keep an eye out for some of these lower price targets depending on how low the market pushes, and this is around 108. I mean, I feel like that would be pretty extreme. I kind of watch more for a bounce and maybe in this range around 130. Yeah, that makes more sense. Somewhere between 125 to 130, but it depends on how low the market goes that 100 could be hit. So on the very low end of a Kusama dip, I'd watch for 100, but overall, I kind of keep my eye around 125 to 130. But this price target of 151, which is a little bit lower than where it is right now, most likely will be hit. Let's take a quick look at the 4 hour chart. We can see here that it is trending down. It is on a bit of a impulse move down, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see it kind of trend back up this way depending on what happens with Bitcoin. But it looks like this price target right here of around 151 will probably be hit soon. So my price targets for the time being, as far as Kusama goes, I kind of keep an eye around 151, but if it goes lower than that, somewhere between 125 to 130 and 100 on the extreme end. But for now, I just keep my eye around 151 for the time being with Kusama. Looking at AXS's daily chart, let's turn our notes on from the other day, and you can see here pretty much landed directly on our price target that we talked about before, hit 16.7, a little bit lower we talked about on the Ichimoku chart, which we'll look at in a moment, but I think this could be the bouncing point for Axie to keep going. So you see here the stochastic RSI is extremely low. It's still in a big uptrend. This had to come back down. This level of a pullback was expected. This just can't keep going like this, but I think this could be the bouncing point. So let's jump over to the Ichimoku chart real quick. Looking at Axie Infinity's daily Ichimoku chart, let's turn our notes on before. Actually, let's turn the notes off. So you can see here it did pull back to the baseline like we talked about. And if we look here, that was a price target of around 15.9. It did dip a little bit below. Let's move this down. If there is a harder pullback, I kind of watch for this $14 range. But if we jump to the 4 hour chart, keep in mind the stochastic RSI is extremely low. RSI is still in uptrend, and this pullback had to happen. This could not keep going like this. As far as price targets, I'd watch out for resistance around 17. What you would want to see is Axie get back above here, which is around $25, but really you want to see it get above 20. So 20 and 17 are going to be the resistance levels I'll be watching. I think Axie still has more room to keep pumping. This pullback was kind of expected. If it does come back down to 14, still bullish, but you know, as far as the market goes, it's being pulled down, so that is a possibility. I wouldn't expect it to go any lower than that. It is always possible, but I think Axie still has room to pump. So the price targets I'd be watching on Axie Infinity for the time being would be around $17 to $20 as major resistance. The 17 is kind of a big one. It needs to get above there, but 20 is going to be the major resistance, which will kind of give us an indication that it could push above. It'll run some resistance around 22, but if it gets above 20, 24 and above is possible. But as far as a pullback on the lowest end, I kind of keep an eye out for 14. It may dip a little lower with the market being how things are, but I think Axie still has room to pump, so I'd watch for those resistance levels of around $17 to $20. All right, folks, that's all for today. If there's any charts you want me to look at in the future, leave it down in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and turn that bell on so you get those notifications. If you're not following me on Twitter, KevinCrates_ on Twitter. I'm extremely active on there. Anytime you guys tweet at me, I will always tweet back at you. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'm out.